So in this part 2, let's continue working with basics of Numpy package in Python. So again, remind you that we have already called the package into our Jupyter notebook. Okay, so next thing we're going to do, similar to the way that we can create a list using a loop, there are ways that you can create a range simply in Numpy package. And the method for that is called aRange. So we call the package np. So NumPy, we import it as np. So we say np.aRange, and 10 will include all the numbers but 10. So if we wanted the first 10 0 to 10, we could say aRange 11. And in the same way that we can work with lists, now there are different ways to play around with this. So we can say, for instance, 0 to 100 and with the step of 10. So that will start from 0 and it will print every 10 numbers into, it will assign it to our array, not including 100. So again, if I wanted 100, I could just say 101, and that will give us the numbers that we are looking for. Again, if I go back and say, let's say 20 to 5 with the step of 5, and I should be able to get all of these numbers. Now let us start to do a little more complex ways of playing with these arrays. So I'm going to create an array again, call it ARR, and I'm going to say 10 to 55 with the step of 5. And let's print this out first and see how it looks like. So this is, again, as I mentioned too, it does come very similar to lists, although it doesn't have those commas. Now if we want to access any element, we can try to see if we can, let's say, call some of the values in the array. So if I'm saying AR1, that should give me the second value. So index 1 in the array. If I'm calling AR, let's say 3 onward, this is an example of what's known as slicing. So I'm getting all the values except the 3, so 0, 1, 2. So all of those values, and you can assign that to a different variable if you need to. So slicing is useful when we need to work with just part of the values in the array. Another thing we can do with NumPy arrays is called broadcasting, which is assigning a value with an index range. Let's say I want to change some of the values that are here. Let's say all the values from up to the 5th index, but not including, I want to change them to, let's say, 51. And I'm going to call array again. So we see that the first 5 values of our array are now turned into 51, and the rest stayed the same. So this is one way to change again some of the values. But let me create the array again. Let me go back to the original array that we had. So those values are now rewritten. So if I want to get the original values, I need to assign and redefine my array again. Now there are sudden differences between the way lists work in Python versus arrays in Numpy. So let me go to the example of a slicing. So we had, I'm just going to copy paste it from above. So I'm slicing part of the array and I'm assigning that to a new array called AR slice, and so we received the first 5 values. Now if I now print and reassign some of the values the way we did here, let's say now I want to do AR slice and change the first 2 values of the AR slice to 51. Alright. But now if I'm going back to ARR, which was the original array, now we see that the first 2 values of ARR also were impacted. Let me just print this slice 2. So you see that AR slice actually wrote into the original ARR as well. And this is the difference between the way Python and Numpy works, which is fine and it's by design, but this is just something we have to be careful. So behaviors among Python and Numpy are not the same when it comes to lists. So when in list, when we are slicing, we basically anything we do with the slice, it's not going to change the original value. However, in Numpy, it will also read into the original value. So the way to get around this is by copying the original values when we're changing into a different array to make sure that we keep those values intact. So how do we do it? So we can call a new array. I'll say ARR1 and I say ARR copy. So now if I'm doing this, let's call ARR1. So now anything I do to ARR, slicing, reassigning, all of those will not change the original values in which are now copied into AR1.